I'm constantly surprised how deep the well runs in regards to this Bud Light situation. Day over day, week after week, we're just about getting to a point where we can go month after month when it comes to this boycott, and it is so much bigger than just one tranny and a stack of beer. No, it's way bigger than that, and it's a theory and a bunch of ideas that I've been thinking about for quite a long time, and I think I'll be able to put it across throughout the course of this video. So if you'd like to stick around for that, hey, I'd really appreciate it. But first and foremost, 1 in 3 Americans strongly back transgender beer boycott. Interesting, because you're getting to a point where, okay, 1 in 3, so 33%, I know, right, math, just off the top of my head, strongly back the beer boycott. Oh, okay, what about the rest of the people? Transgenderism is so toxic to many Americans, many great Americans, wonderful Americans, that 50% of middle-income earners, you know, the likely beer consumers, are less likely to buy Bud Light beer because the brewer hired a pro-transgender man to change the beer's public image. Well, okay, that's one way to put it. It's our good friend Dylan Mulvaney with just some of the best thumbnail fodder pictures, which shout out to that for at least, you know, giving us good material. It's almost as good as the pictures that we found for Eliza Blue. It's getting real close. 2023 has just been the gift that keeps on giving. Anywho, the good news for ordinary Americans, the bad news for the beer company's accountants, was spotlighted by Rasmussen poll of 1,041 adults. Not a big sample size, but given the fact that we've been looking at several polls recently where, okay, your sample size is a handful of people, it's not bad. It's not great. It's better than average from what I've seen. Released on April 18th. So 2 weeks out from when all this stuff kicked off. So a good amount of time for people to get familiarized with the situation. All right, 1/3 of people in each income group say they strongly support the boycott. 54% of Americans support a Bud Light boycott. That's the bigger deal. Over half of Americans surveyed support the boycott, including 53% of men, of course, 57% of white respondents, and 66% of Republicans. All right, all of those numbers seem to check out. And 57% of people under the age of 40. Yeah, that's not very good because it's that lauded 18 to... depends on which stats you're looking at, but the 18 to 54s or the 18 to 45s, it all depends. It all depends on the demographics, but that's normally where it is, and that's where all of the marketing dollars tend to go, is that under 40 legal age and about middle age. That's where the consumer base is, and that's where the targeted ads normally land. And the fact that that group right there is just doing away with their support, that's why Bud Light's been awfully quiet. Now, Bud proper released that stupid horse campaign, but hey man, they can't be completely quiet. They have something like 2 or 3 dozen brands under their belt, so somebody was going to break ranks beforehand. And that's always where I posited where all of these ideas ultimately come from. This was all in service of chasing the most amount of money out there. Women, for whatever reason, there's a multitude of reasons that we can go into at a later date, they prioritize, you know, feelings over facts, and they're the ones that are always lining up for the pride parades, bringing their cucked husbands or boyfriends or little wallet with a dick around to all of these different pride rituals. So by changing the marketing to attract a different base than your loyal group of people that were just more than likely going to buy Bud Light regardless. It's a fratty brand. Oh, Bud Light is associated with frat bros, and they could take them for granted because they knew that, well, light beer is going to be marketable to, you know, the frat demographic, and regardless, that's always going to be churn right there, so they can take them for granted. But they didn't realize that, yeah, it might have been a step too far this time around. They're finding out in real time. Just 18% strongly oppose a boycott, including 30% of Democrats, of course. That's for the strongly. Okay, so strongly, 30% of Democrats and 11% of Republicans. Yeah, but they're probably like coastal Republicans, or I don't know, did they survey Don Jr.? God, that was such a weird take. Overall, the plurality of Democrats say that they support the movement. 44% to 43. Yo, okay, and then breaking it down even further. Oh, good, we can just go ahead and blow this up, and that actually fits on the screen. Shout out. So yeah, we can run this down. So yeah, strongly support, somewhat oppose. Okay, so somewhat and strongly. Okay, so total for adults, you got 30% oppose, somewhat or strongly. So that's not great at all whatsoever. 16% of, you know, just midwits that are out there. Well, it's the nuanced take. No, shut up, it isn't. But women, somewhat and strongly, that's interesting that it's at 29%, whereas the male feminists at 30%. I find that interesting. Like the opposed brackets, yeah, that totally makes sense. Somewhat, okay, yeah. The middling female response, well, somewhat. It's like, if you guys ever get those surveys or those questionnaires where they got the rank what you think on a 1 to 5 or a 0 to 5 scale, for me, it's always the 1 or whatever's the furthest strongly, or it's the most beautifully strongly, the number 5 on the end. The shit in the middle might not, it may as well not even be there. It's a binary response for me, but if YouTube's gonna call me an extremist, I might as well live up to the label, but that's the way that I roll. The 65 and older crowd, interesting. Like, okay, 42% of them in the 65 and older somewhat oppose the boycott. Interesting. Well, it's just a guy playing dress up. I don't quite get it. But then, yeah, 39% support it. It's some form or fashion. No men under the age of 40. Yo, check this one. I found this interesting. Okay, and no men under the age of 40 strongly oppose. Every other category is somewhere in there, but nobody strongly opposes in the under 40 male demographic. But the women are polarized on this. Strongly support. Oh, I'm sorry. The 40 plus men are strongly polarized on this. Interesting. Not much wiggle room in the middle. But for the women under 40, of course, all of their, well, my nuance, the somewhat opposed category is the largest, and then the strongly support. Interesting. So again, just the bipolar nature of women in general. Not saying they're all, but whatever. Women over 40. Wow, just the different. Oh, that's very interesting. Okay, just the women's strongly support. The women over 40, 37% of women over the age of 40 strongly support the boycott, as opposed to women under the age of 40. Well, okay, they're there, 21%, and you can also run that back with different voting patterns, and that kind of checks out. But the one that sticks out the most, okay, they're not sure. Women under 40 are not sure about it. Even in a privatized setting like that, they can't even come to a decision. It's a sisterhood uber alles. Oh, I might have my private positions, but I would never impose them on the public. And that's why we need more women leaders, right? Yeah, okay. Yo, basically every race is like, yeah, no, this shit is totally fucking whack. I don't know what you guys are doing. That's interesting. Those are the biggest categories. And then, yeah, by political affiliation, yeah, 67% of Republicans support it. And then, yeah, like they said, plurality of Democrats, or even just like, yeah, no, that's kind of ridiculous. I don't know why you guys are doing that. By 2%. Very, very interesting. And then, yeah, your midweight independents, but I don't really care about them because they're all just dumb to begin with. So that's interesting to look under the hood on those numbers, for sure, for sure. Boycott may be biting nationwide. A TV station in Montana reported on April 19th. Aaron Swain is an owner of a Red Door in Billings and is one of the many local bars that have seen Bud Light sales plummet ever since the beer giant teamed up with transgender TikTok influencer Dylan Mulvaney during March Madness. Yeah, that was just such a disrespectful ad too. Yeah, I got paid a bunch of money and the March Madness came through and I don't even know what that is. Good waste of cash on an endorsement from somebody who couldn't care less about your product. And then it shows you how out of touch people are. It's like, I would never take a sponsorship from something I didn't know about, or it was a product or a service that I personally wouldn't use. But that's my own moral standing. I guess I won't be able to sell out in the same way that Dylan Mulvaney does. Aw, shucks. But yo, when the ad was announced, 5,600 news articles were published about the controversy in 2 weeks. Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but my YouTube feed right now is just absolutely jam-packed with different people. And it's ranging a bunch of different creators when it comes to talking about this issue. Mostly because I think it definitely hits on a bunch of different topics. And it really encapsulates everything very fully. Yeah, this poll spotlights Americans' deep opposition to Mulvaney's transgender ideology, which seeks to outlaw civic and legal distinctions between men and women and boys and girls. Maybe it's people are starting to realize that, there's probably some principles and values that this country should probably hold up and not compromise, because we've seen what happens when we have a laissez-faire approach to things that we don't necessarily think are all that important, because, well, with that approach, this is where we're at. So yeah, something as a fundamental and easily identifiable as men are men, women are women, and the two shall not be confused for one another, or at least purposefully misled to be addressed as the other. The revolutionary change would suppress the public's civic recognition of the different and complementary heterosexual needs of the two sexes. Yeah, of course, and that's something that I say quite a bit. Men and women are vastly different. In fact, men and women are probably more different than they are similar, but that doesn't mean that one is better than the other and that we'd be better apart. To the contrary of that, men and women are complementary of one another and are far better together than they are apart. But then you have the other side of the aisle that is totally disingenuous, that just thinks that, they're just all the same and there's really no distinction, and there's the settled science says that there's no difference between men and women. There are people over there on that side that actually espouse that idiocy. GOP politicians are increasingly unified in opposition to the transgender push, and many polls show that the most moderate swing voters oppose the fast expanding transgender ideology. But that's not something that the Democratic Party at large really cares all that much about, because, yeah, there was a bill that was in the House there earlier today, but check this one. Myra Flores, she's from South Texas, representing a part of, I think, along the southwest border. But yes, the House has voted in favor of protecting women's sports. As much as I like to joke about it, it's like, the fact that we are here, I'm glad some people are pushing against that, even though it makes for hilarious comedy fodder and really checks all of those chicks to think that, well, I can do it just as good as the man, and we can do it in heels and makeup too. No, you can't. No physical endeavor in which there's going to be a female and a male equally trained where you're going to have a woman prosper consistently. Like, that does not happen at all whatsoever. Just stop it. There's women's sports for a reason. Now, if you want to start talking about redefining preferential treatment that was granted to women in sports, care of Title IX and a bunch of other monetary provisions from the government, well, then we can start to have a conversation. I'd definitely be all ears for that. But the Democrats are trying to make this an election issue, because I can see them kicking this down the road. And this was something that I was thinking about way back in 2019. Cast your mind back, pre-pandemic world. Boy, it was a fantastic place. And realistically, we were getting to a point of just a unanimous harmony. Really, just think about it. It's like everybody was making more money. Taxes were going down. Gas was a buck a gallon, a buck $1.60 in some places I was seeing, and up here in Canada it was converted, if you will, high 70s per liter. Like, things were going incredibly great, and societal tensions, they weren't all that crazy. Okay, you had the people that were just big butthurt about Trump. But things were going swimmingly, and it looked like he was coasting his way to a second consecutive term. But then all of a sudden, all the racial issues and now all of these gendered issues are popping up. Democrats need some issues to hang their hats on, and I think they're trying to pivot away from being the party of minorities because they're seeing that Trump is getting a larger swath. It's not a majority by any means, but it's definitely a noticeable uptick of the working class minority base, and now they're just trying to pivot whole hog to the destroyed family system and trying to scoop up all the single mothers that they financially incentivize throughout all of their different social security policies, and the alphabet mafia. That's really what this seems like right here. And you guys remember during the 2020 election cycle, during the two debates and the couple of town halls that they held in between, the big issue of the pandemic, there's gonna be some talk on trans stuff that's gonna be up there. Don't know quite how they're gonna approach it during that election cycle, but oh my god, it's gonna be hilarious, especially if Trump ends up being the nominee. He's gonna call out chicks with dicks, and he's gonna be as blunt as Trump normally is up there, and it's not gonna be a winning issue for the Democrats. But they also have 18 months in order to properly curtail their messaging, so who knows? Because they have a way with language. Gender affirming care. Nah, it's just genital mutilation, if we call it what it actually is. Sterilization of minors, okay? We want to get real blunt about this stuff. Nobody on the Republican side, sans Trump, is willing to do this. And somebody who's been to the Biden White House. You remember, this is how Dylan really popped off. Well, that and old appearances on, like, The Price is Right and acting in the Book of Mormon stage play, but no. During whatever it was, day 16 of girlhood, getting a sit-down interview with Joe Biden. Oh my god. If it's that easy, I can see why he spurned so many clones. But because the left is a godless, moralist cult, is that too strong? Yeah, I don't really care. Now they're trying to subvert Christianity, and one of the first points in recent history where they're actually standing up for some of their principles, especially in the face of this stuff. A shout out to those NHL players who are like, nah, we ain't doing this whole Pride Night stuff. Okay, I don't want to have rainbow tape on my stick, you creeps. I'm not wearing the gay jersey. Call me a bigot. I don't care. I've got my faith. I've got my principles. So we'll see how well this goes. Dylan Mulvaney touts relationship with God. I think he made me, I don't think he made a mistake with me. No, I think Bud Light made a mistake with you, but that's neither here nor there. Transgender advocate Dylan Mulvaney is portraying himself as a religious martyr while he tries to blur the nation's recognition that men and women have different needs and preferences. I'm trying really hard to maintain a relationship with God, Mulvaney said as he presented himself as a classic movie star, Audrey Hepburn, in a March 13th show at New York's Rockefeller Center. He continued, I don't think he made a mistake with me, and that maybe one day I'll actually be grateful for being trans. And this isn't some curse. It's just a different path to the same destination. Oh, the video was posted by Relevant Magazine amid the public kickback. That's a new one. Haven't seen that one yet, but haven't used Breitbart as a source in a while, so maybe they've been running with this narrative. Kickback. I've just seen boycott and backlash, but I like kickback. Anyways, against Anheuser-Busch much publicized decision to hire Mulvaney as the advocate for its Bud Light beer, the company's CEO is trying to back away from the decision, but he also faces pro-transgender pressure from the marketing executives, Alyssa Hirschneider or whatever. We need to move away from fratty beers. You know, shut up, bitch. And likely from President Joe Biden's government regulators. Yes, exactly. Because trans issues are going to become American issues because, hey man, Democrat used to be the working class party, right? It used to be the party of unions. Now, well, now they're just going to be the party of syndicates. But realistically, if you know anything about history and you understand, certain elections and their close ties with organized crime, they've kind of always been that. So anticipate even more of a double, tripling, quadrupling. I don't even know what specific number we are on at this point in time, but June is just on the horizon. We're just about through April, and oh boy, the Super Bowl of big gay woke shit is on the horizon. It's going to be something. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.